I will not be this directive all the time, don't worry. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the metaverse, so of course, half of our panel is here live, half of the panel is probably through Zoom, not spatial, but Zoom. So we do a little back and forth, and we do our best with technology to make that work. I just heard that, like, if they're talking on Zoom, that we cannot have our mics on, so just so you know that it will be a bit of listening in sometimes and not conversational, but we make the best of it. But first, of course, we turn to you two. This panel is about citizens and how we can improve, let's say, engagement with our citizens or residents in cities. What's interesting is that we have more local or national perspectives, and we have international perspectives. We'll have perspectives from the public sector and from the private sector. So it's a bit of a mix, and I think that's good, because cities are, of course, way more than only city governments. And I think, as I said before in the previous panel, that it's much also about public-private partnerships. So how can we really work together? Let us start with a little introduction, if I may. Starting with you, Jorge, could you briefly tell something about, of course, your name and your role and which organization, and maybe also why you are here? What brings you here?
Well, the last question is a really good one, but my name is Jorge Ventura, and I'm the Director of Economic Development for the city of New Rochelle, New York, just a tiny bit north of the Bronx. My work focuses on engaging with the community, and the community in two different parts, both citizens and businesses. And the reason why I'm here is because we've been trying and deploying a platform to engage with the community for specific projects, high impact projects on the public realm through virtual reality. And baby steps, like really early on the exploration phase, but we're pretty open to the innovation aspect of it. And I'll speak a little bit more about that.
Great. Thank you again for being here. Justin.
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Justin Breton. I oversee emerging experiences for Walmart. So emerging experiences for Walmart includes digital experiences, it includes virtual experiences, it includes gaming. And the reason we're embracing this space is because it allows us to engage with communities outside of the traditional four walls of Walmart. And by four walls of Walmart, I mean our stores, our website, our app. And really, it's about driving meaningful engagement in a way that shifts perception of our brand and hopefully drives loyalty and preference as people and communities think about who it is that they want to engage with and shop with. And so today I'm here to share our learnings, hopefully inspire you, and be a part of this conversation, but also to learn from all of you as you share what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Justin. Let's go to our two international speakers who will probably appear on screen. And as I said, I have to mute the mic, so I'll give the floor first to Roland van der Heijden, who is from the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And right after, David Shin, who is an entrepreneur, an ex-banker, and much into blockchain and also metaverse-related projects. And he is based in Singapore, so also already thanking him for being there quite late in the evening today.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me? Okay. For you, I think, good morning, everybody. My name is Roland van Heijden. I am program manager for the Digital City program of the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And within our program, we are focused mainly on what we call the city in transition. And we see our city changing from what we call traditional social physical city towards a new social physical digital city. Instead of two realities with one dimension, a social physical dimension, we now see three realities with three dimensions. And those dimensions are more and more going to be intertwined with each other. And that creates completely new city, which we try to create images about what kind of city that is. And to try to understand that, and also to ask ourselves the question, what does the transition of that city, the new social, physical, digital city, do to all the challenges that we are facing as a city? And also, what does it do to the role of government that we have in that new city? So that's main questions that we ask ourselves, we try to answer within the Digital City program that is running since 2018 and still going on.
David Shin here from Singapore. Grateful to be here. Thanks, Liz, for the invitation. My background, I currently work for a Web3 gaming platform called Immutable, where I'm heading up business development in Asia and EMEA. Prior to that, I was with another blockchain called Clayton, and Tezos before that. So I've been actively involved in growing layer 1 blockchain ecosystems for a number of years now. I just recently launched a book through Wiley, the publisher, called the Web3 Era. I spend a whole chapter talking about the metaverse and the importance of the metaverse for the future of digital economies. And again, grateful to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you so much, Dave, all the way from Rotterdam and Singapore. By the way, it's in the Netherlands, where, of course, Roland is based, and we also come from. It's National King's Day today. So if you see some orange here and there, that might be a link to National King's Day. But that set aside, I'm happy that Roland is making the time while he could also have been having a beer right now in the afternoon. So talking about dedication. Let's go back to the live part of the panel now. First, Jorge, could you tell something more about the platform that you initiated and are running currently? And maybe one more specific question about it, which I caught my attention because I read that you are combining both low-tech and high-tech. So I would love to understand a bit about that combination and why you made that combination.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So we call the platform NRVR, and for Rochelle virtual reality, that's how it came up in the beginning. So the beginning of it was a Bloomberg Philanthropies Mayor's Challenge award that we got back in 2018. It was a 3-year grant. It was extended because of many challenges with COVID, for some cities that won in 2018 to actually move to the implementation phase of the grant, and it was granted an extension. But the main thing that we were looking at back then was like, how do we actually overcome the challenges of engaging with the communities for major projects that have a high impact on the public realm and that impact generations to come in cities? How do we actually engage deeply, like you mentioned, Justin, and in a meaningful way with the communities so they own projects that cities are championing, specifically public good and big projects. And then we decided to explore the innovation of virtual reality on providing like the understanding of a project, not through me speaking or showing you like a 2D plan or like a section or things like that, trying to make people understand things in ways that they might not be familiar with. And then what type of feedback do you actually provide and that is meaningful when you don't actually understand the question or the project itself or its impact? So I think the main thing that we're trying to address is first, how do we get everybody on the same page through people's minds and experiences? How do we immerse people in the projects early on so everybody is talking about the same thing? That's as basic of a problem as we're trying to solve. And the second part of it was how do we change, another thing that Justin did mention, so I was relating a lot, how do we change the community's perspective towards municipal governments and the trust? How do we build trust in like we're doing an intentional effort, true effort to actually engage with people and give them the ownership of specific projects? So what the platform actually looks like, it's the way we try to deploy it is in a physical way. We insert ourselves in the communities. So basically meeting people where they are. And we come up with this programming throughout the year that look like an event programming, throughout the city. We're at different places, and there's a concert, there's a movie night, there's things like that people are familiarized with and attract people. And then we, as a pod, deploy virtual reality environment, like a physical hub, that we allow people to access this technology and provide information about the project and let them experience what the current situation is and what the future could look like, what the canvas is that they have to play with. And we start like an iterative process in engaging with people. They go to surveys afterwards. They speak to us. We document all of that. And then we extract ourselves from that community and keep going through different parts of the city like that. And then what we do with that information is what's important to a degree. It's not just capturing information for capturing information. It's how do we insert that meaningful feedback into the actual design, and we bring it back to the community. So, for a city that's only 80,000 people, it's considered a suburban city. It's more like the edge, we're not a complete suburb. It's pretty impactful, and the reactions we get and the engagement that we get is actually creating a big impact for us, because we've been able to start to see how people's perceptions is changing on how the city is engaging with them. So something, a latest survey that we've done from the people that we were able to reach with this survey, 91% of people now have increased their positive perception, on the effort that the city is doing to engage with them. In 91%
Wow.
of the people feel like the movement is in a positive direction. So we're pretty excited about that. And like I'm saying, this is baby steps in how do we deploy this type of things. We don't know exactly how it's going to evolve. You asked about low tech and high tech, so it's pretty simple. We learned early on that some people do not want to try yet VR. Some people get dizzy with headsets and things like that. So we're trying to solve for how are we as inclusive as possible? How we provide access to everybody, on the feedback process. We don't want to exclude anybody just because they don't want to try the new thing. So what we did was create a physical kiosk, right, that has different stages, different rooms in it that you can go through in sequence or or not in sequence, depending on your preference, and you can interact with the city and with this project in an analog way, a really conventional ways, on a board, being able to put stickies and stuff like that relate back to something you saw on the TV, that somebody's experiences, where you're casting it like on the TV, and you're able to explore to somebody else's mind the actual project, but you cannot actually be immersed in it. So that's why we are having this like hybrid, low-tech, high-tech way of interacting right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important element. We've talked about that maybe briefly before, but the inclusivity of it is, I think, really important, especially from the perspective, of course, of a government. So I'm happy to see, of course, that you build that in from the very beginning. I also see you already looking at Justin for a few times, because there's already similarity. So Justin, you've been involved also in the, let's say, metaverse experience of Walmart. Can you tell us something about it, and maybe especially also when we link it to engagement with, in this case, maybe customers, but we can also call them even citizens. But what can we also learn as cities broadly from your experience?
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. And what I love about these opportunities is that you're going to hear a lot of the same thing. You're going to hear a lot of the same words. You're going to hear a lot about similar strategies. And I think that is so rewarding as somebody that's embracing this space. And I think it means that we're on the right track, and we're thinking about it right from the perspective of Walmart, but the perspective from a city. And so hopefully, as we all walk off the stage today, there are things that resonate with you, like community, like meaningful engagement. And so for Walmart, as we thought about the metaverse, and we thought, what is the opportunity for Walmart? And we started to think about this space back in 2021. It's a space that then was evolving. It's a space today that's evolving. It's still emerging. There's a lot of newness. There's a lot of change. I'm sure all of you are aware and familiar with AI. That is evolving incredibly fast. And so, again, it's a space that's evolving very rapidly. So in 2021, when we did our due diligence to just understand the space and the opportunity for Walmart, we landed on Roblox. And you heard earlier today from Matt, who's with New York City, who I don't know if he's still here with us today, but he referenced Roblox, and that is a platform that has a massive audience. It's an audience of more than 55 million daily active users, and they are skewing younger. And so for us, it was an opportunity to engage with the younger demographic in a meaningful way. So when I say in a meaningful way, I mean, how do we show up authentically and actually provide value and drive engagement in a way that's going to lead to brand preference, brand loyalty, and really get them to think about us differently? I said earlier, meeting customers outside of the four walls of Walmart. This is us meeting them where they are, on a platform that they are very engaged. And so as you think about the metaverse and opportunities for you, and I often like to say in these types of conversations, like, for the purposes of today's discussion, let's just pretend that Walmart is a city, and this is my favorite part, and I'm the mayor of Walmart. And so you all voted for me, I'm your mayor, and I am using and embracing new technologies like VR and AR to engage with you in a meaningful way. And so I may be using these technologies to engage with residents. I may be using these technologies to provide value to people that are visiting my city. But with us on Roblox, we wanted to create something that engaged with our residents, those that are with us daily, but also with people that maybe have never visited our city, and give them a way to think about us differently. So we launched Walmart Land on Roblox, which was an immersive experience that was part theme park, part arcade, but all Walmart and all fun. It was a reimagination of the aisles that you would experience in a Walmart store. So we had Electric Island, which was all about music and entertainment and movies. We had House of Style, which was all about self-expression, which is a core pillar of the Roblox platform, where you could go and see oversized cosmetics. But the cosmetics that we were featuring were cosmetics that were targeted towards Gen Z, towards a younger demographic. We are not a brand that exclusively features the traditional brands, but it's a retail destination that has brands for a younger demographic. And so it was a destination that people could come and engage with our brand in new and unexpected ways. And so as you think about your strategies for the metaverse, 3 pieces of advice are: 1, to surround yourself with people that understand the platform and communities that you're looking to engage with. They will make you smarter, but I would also challenge you to challenge them. Allow them to challenge you so that whatever it is that you put out there is done in a way that, again, is driving meaningful engagement. The second piece of advice is to think about these platforms and technologies as having communities. It's no longer about audiences. This is very different than paid media or social media. This is about connecting with communities and using these technologies.
So this is now community. It's not an audience anymore.
That's correct.
Cool.
We're a community. We're a community that's embracing this technology. And the third piece is really to build a learning agenda. So as you think about your strategy in partnership with those people that are embracing this space, that are challenging you, how do you use a clear objective and thoughtful goals and clear KPIs to inform a learning agenda? As I said earlier, this is a space that's evolving. It's evolving quickly, and your learning agenda is going to set you up for success because you're going to know what it is that you're hoping to learn. Use those learnings to inform a more thoughtful future as you continue to embrace a particular platform and technology or look to evolve into new ones. So we've learned a lot, and we're excited to use those learnings to continue to show up in a meaningful way.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would do the same. I love it. Let's go to the city of Rotterdam, Roland. Now, I also work with Roland, so I can say this, and the Dutch are quite direct. Roland, I'm muted while you are speaking. So I would love to hear your view on what is the role of city government when looking at the metaverse, and how is this, of course, especially for Rotterdam. You have, of course, a few minutes, not half an hour for this question. So just warning you, Roland, but take the mic, we would say.
Thank you, Aaron. When I'm talking too long, then you just cut me off and so on. From the Rotterdam point of view, as I told you in my introduction, one of the main questions is to better understand what our role as a government is in this new, what we call social physical reality. A lot of people, especially also within governments, are still living in the traditional social physical world, in which digital is mainly an instrument to solve our problems, or at best some kind of parallel reality. That we don't want to do nothing much about it or see all kind of negative things hopping over to our traditional social physical world that we understand and that we know. But yeah, we are shifting towards a new world. So it's very important to understand as a government and be much more proactive to learn and to experiment in that new social physical digital city that we are seeing for us. And to learn what our role could be and to participate in that and not have that reactive passive attitude to see what's coming towards us and every time again be surprised as something from that digital world hops into our traditional social physical world and disturbs things. So we must be much more proactive and prepared and to see that that world is shifting and that the three realities are going to be intertwined completely. And from that point of view, and then of course we see that the new world is also very much about connections. And when you look at connections, it's also very important to understand the underlying infrastructures that create that connections. And when you look at the city, then we're going to talk about the social and physical infrastructures of our city. We have a lot of understanding, we have a lot of competence and thoughts about what our role is. But when we talk about the digital infrastructure of our city, then we think, oh, but should we take a role in that? Should we leave it up to the big tech companies that understand that and we don't know, and etc. And I think it's very important that we as government, as I said, be proactive and learn to understand what it is and what our role is into offering in our city the digital infrastructure that is needed and to connect all the stakeholders within our city. So that can exchange services, data, application, what kind of things they want to share with each other, but that can be done through an infrastructure that we call a responsible infrastructure. And then all of the government, we believe in our ecosystem, in our Rotterdam ecosystem, and when we talk about digital infrastructure, that we should seek some kind of form, it's also already mentioned, that creates confidence within our citizens and all other kinds of stakeholders within our city in that digital infrastructure. And to create that confidence, we now are building what we call an open urban platform for the city, that we see as a centerpiece of that digital infrastructure. And it's done and exploited by a private company. But we build at the same time, next to the exploitation by the private company, a government board that will foresee on what we call a responsible exploitation platform.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, yeah, sorry. This is where it's either you or me. So Roland, we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for this first part. I wasn't cutting him off; it was technology, but in due agreement. Let's go to David from Singapore. David, in our preparation, I heard you had several interesting ideas when you look at the relationship between Metaverse and cities. I heard something about elections, public facilities in the Metaverse, City Hall, or handling disputes even. So could you maybe expand a little bit, David, about the ideas that you have that could be very relevant for cities to look at when looking at the Metaverse? Yeah, I cannot tell him.
Hello?
There it is. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, looking at productivity and efficiency across cities, I think you really have to consider the digital and virtual element of incorporating some of that into how cities are operating. Some ideas that I had, which I think from a Singapore standpoint, or from an Asia standpoint, including Korea and Seoul and Busan, some of these cities are really actively pursuing Web3 metaverse type agenda. Some of the ideas that I've spoken to the Singapore government about here is elections, as you had mentioned. During COVID in particular, it was pretty evident that given that people weren't able to go outside and interact, there was a real need to have this sort of digital engagement of sorts. And that kind of led into diving down a hole of trying to figure out more opportunities for governments to participate in that space. So I think elections could be very well suited for, as a use case for the metaverse sometime down the line. Things like travel and tourism, to be able to have this kind of immersive experience for the city, especially a beautiful city like New York, to be able to create that kind of experience for tourists outside of the US. I think that could be quite interesting. And then also, you know, running programs that is beneficial to the city. So things like taking the idea and the concept of play to earn and creating something like a recycle to earn program, where the city is providing some sort of reward for people to recycle, and doing that in such a way where you're incorporating the metaverse and having these types of immersive experiences in order for you to be engaged with the various different people who are living in the city. Move to earn could be another concept where health and educating people about being active could be, you know, applied here again through Web3 and the metaverse. So there's quite a few opportunities here, and I do think at some stage cities, at least here in Asia, I can speak to you about that. They are more actively looking at and pursuing these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Dave. It reminds me of a few months ago, I was in Singapore, and they were just starting, for example, pilots around tourism. So they take 2 years, 4 platforms, because of course it's interesting to take one where maybe your community is widely sort of represented, but they take 4 different commercial platforms for 2 years and see how they can use it to engage in tourism and attract people to Singapore that maybe wouldn't have go there in another occasion. So I think that's interesting to follow. Tourism is in general a case that more cities are diving into, and again, that's also something that we try to do, to see, okay, what can we learn from each other? And of course, every city wants to attract their own crowd, but you know, I think as to strategy, at least, it's good to work together on this. Let's have a say of not the audience, but the community. Is there somebody who wants to add something to the conversation? A question, a remark, something that we can learn from you? Yes? Okay. Let's see how we do this. Yeah. I just come to you. Why not?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much. This is an amazing event, and it's very valuable what you guys are doing. My name is Alex Kinn, and I'm chairman of the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance Real Estate and Tokenization Consortium. So this is very relevant to me, and I'm fascinated by the topic. You discussed different projects and different initiatives that are being developed, some of them private, some of them public. And I agree how essential it is for this private-public partnership to exist for multiple reasons. Obviously, I think Neil Stephenson, who is the one who coined the word metaverse in his book Snow Crash, he himself, I think, cautioned against taking the concept of metaverse too literally. I think at the time the book was written, there was no PCs. In fact, he himself said that when he was writing the book, he was imagining a TV set, a TV screen, interacting with the TV screen. He said it was just me sitting there making shit up. So to that extent, how do you think is it really achievable, this public-private partnership where there's such strong private commercial interests at play? And I agree, the guardrails are essential. And I love the term Andrew used, responsible, because so much of it can go so many different ways. So how do you see this private partnership with public actually working? How can you align these interests?
Thank you so much for your question. And I think we can just solve this within 2.5, 3 minutes with the two of you. So imagine, let's just imagine. So let's step a bit out of our comfort zones. Forget about all the legal issues of your companies and your city government, and just think, okay, what if you would be in the room together and say, okay, we're going to make a step into the metaverse together? How would you find each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said earlier, like this is an emerging space, and I think there's so much opportunities to collaborate and find opportunities that don't exist today where private and public are coming together. I think for a brand like a Walmart, where we play a really important role in more than 4,500 communities across the country, there is an opportunity for us to partner at a local level where we're using this technology to provide value. That is what we want to do, which is provide value. And we want to deliver on our brand promise, which I'm sure all of you hopefully know it, which is, we promise that we will help our customers save money and live better. And so how do we use that technology at a community level to help customers save money and live better? I don't know what the perfect solution is, because I think we have to partner and figure it out. And what we do with your city might be different than what we do with a city on the West Coast. It might be different with what we do with a city down in Florida. It's really about understanding what is going to add value to those communities, and how do we use that technology to actually add value. I also think, as we think about this technology, the way in which we're approaching it is making sure that it is accessible. And we as a brand that, again, has a footprint in more than 4,500 communities nationwide, we're servicing millions of customers or residents on a daily basis. How do we also democratize access? So you heard earlier somebody talk about Apple's new VR headset. That is not accessible to the Walmart customer. That's not accessible to me. It's got a very high price point. I'm sure with time that will become more accessible, similar to the comment regarding the Apple Watch was originally coined sort of a failure, but now many of you here are wearing them, as are millions of people across the country. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I don't have the perfect answer, but that's how I'm thinking about it. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Just really briefly, not too in depth, but I think that there's a lot of power that comes with creating this framework and rules, brand rules and things like that. But I think that transparency is, like me, from this, from a municipal government point of view, being transparent at what the outcome of an effort or an initiative or an embarkment, in something. Is super important, and then from there, you open up a forum to actually get to an answer to something, to something like that in the right context, like you mentioned, Justin. That's just my thinking.
Thank you. Of course, there's a difference between creating an own platform or using a platform that is already out there. That's a big difference. But at one point, I could imagine that there will be presence from city governments also, like maybe in their own platforms, but maybe also in the commercial platforms. So it's also interesting to see. It makes me think of a question that was already popping up, I think, 1.5 years ago or something, with the city of Amsterdam, that if you walk through, let's say, Roblox or another virtual environment, and you walk through the streets, who owns the streets? Because of course, in a city, it's you have something to say about that public space. But what if it's Roblox? That's also interesting. So how do you? What is your role there? What is maybe also responsibility there if they are walking through Walmart land? That's interesting to think about, and that's maybe also where you can meet each other as to these kind of more governance or even regulation kind of material. But maybe that's for something for Roland to solve. Let's make it easy. We cross maybe 4,000 miles now within a second, and ask Roland maybe, if I may, from the city of Rotterdam, if you look at those bigger players being involved, and also maybe to the question earlier from our community here, how would you see Rotterdam working together with commercial platforms, which you partly, of course, also do by building your own urban open platform with a commercial partner, and what issues may arise while we are doing this?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things already mentioned by you, what a very interesting discussion will be, what in the physical world is a permanent discussion, and in the digital world not yet, but should also be a discussion, even when it becomes more part of our reality, is the relation between private and public space in the digital reality. What's private, what's public, and who's owning what, and who's creating the rules in what. So that's a very interesting thing. And we see in the city, in that new social physical digital city, as I mentioned, that's what we call the digital urban community. And that's really touching upon what the metaverse is. But the metaverse in its essence is a virtual world and is footloose. And the city is in essence a physical bounded area. And how do those two connect? And what does it mean, that connection? And what kind of questions do arise from that there? And that also brings back to the role of the government in this, because when I talk about the physical infrastructure in our city, and I would say that every street in our city was owned by a private company that makes their own rules about under which conditions you can use the street, and that would create complete chaos in the city. And if all the streets in the city were owned by one private company, I don't think that would be a worse situation. So it's very important to think, what does that mean for the digital infrastructure of that city, and the infrastructure that later on will facilitate that metaverse, or that new digital reality, or the digital urban community, as we call it. So, and I think that we, of course, need to work together. And in Rotterdam, at this moment, as you already said, Harmen, we built an open urban platform. And we try now to seek our role in how to make it a responsible commercial exploitation. And we think that we now, by creating a governance board, that will need to foresee on everything that a private company does. So the private company is allowed to do everything the commercial company wants to do to make business on a platform. And at the same time, he needs to be responsible on what he's doing. For example, can a pornography shop also advertise in the digital world? Or whatever kind of thing you can imagine, all kinds of ethical, privacy issue related things, and you can think about that the company needs to be responsible about. And so the governance board has the opportunity to have binding advisors for the private company to deal with when those responsibilities are at stake. So, and that the governance board is also independent from the government. So we as a government are also bounded by the regulations coming from the governance board, up until a certain extent, but that's more in detail.
Right, thank you, Roland. I think I hear a lot of things that also need more in writing, I think. So that is, I think, also an effort we're going to make with the team in the coming weeks and months, that we'll see to it that many of the learnings that we hear today and tomorrow will also get to you in a very concrete way, and that we also make maybe crossovers and relations between the content that we'll hear. How about time? How much do we have? Or yeah, well, that was my idea too, so then we're completely aligned. And then my daughter here, what was your question? No? Okay. I brought my 13-year-old who's standing at the wall. She doesn't like it that I did that right now. But David, yeah, there are too many questions for now, but okay, we'll follow up. Could you maybe expand a bit more, David, about the experience more locally? Like Singapore and Seoul, of course, we're talking about completely different countries, but you know, both, I think, advancing already in the field of the metaverse. So what could we learn from those cities or from your region, and what is maybe also culturally maybe different from Europe or the US, and where could we either leapfrog or work together?
There isn't really any project that's live yet, but there's a lot of research industry-wide discussions happening with government and private sector and various different technology companies here in Singapore as well as in Korea. I think Japan is also interesting. Their regulation for Web3 and their appetite for growing more of the digital economy is increasing. They have been traditionally pretty slow here. So, and China is, I think most of you who read the newspaper know, China is moving more and more towards a digital economy. Their WeChat application is pretty widespread in terms of usage for all kinds of different use cases. So I think that kind of leads into the second part of your question there around, what is really differentiating Asia from Europe to the US. Asia, as most of you probably know, we're very connected over here per GDP, per capita, I would say. The average user is on the internet, on their mobile device, much more than perhaps the average user per capita in Europe or the US. And so it's a lot easier for them to get the conversion when there are new types of applications or new systems that roll out. But also, in addition to that, as a footnote, it's worth noting that 5G rolled out here a few years ago now. So in lots of Europe and lots of the US, it's still not active 5G. And with that, higher level of transmission of data really allows you to create things like Metaverse and really have that be an opportunity for both government and private sectors.
Thank you so much, David. Yeah, that also makes me think about, of course, the emergence of generative AI, and then, for example, Italy is banning generative AI. And that kind of things are really interesting, because then you will gonna see almost geographical differences between countries in a digital sphere. What will that do? That's a question for another time, because we have to sort of round it up. Dear community, one more question before we are closing this session, or do we all need a break? Or yeah, that's of course. Liz and I, we talked for a month, so that's again the same thought that I had. But I first wanted to turn to the community. If there are no questions, then we're going to do final remarks. Some final remarks, no. But let's. This maybe not. This is challenging for a few more minutes, but okay. 2030. It always sounds like a lot of years away, but it's just 6.5 years or something. So, what would you foresee if you imagine what you're doing right now, but really to the next level, or what would you hope it to be for your city of New Rochelle, New York?
Well, at the speed at which cities are able to move, I think that's pretty close. It's right there. But I can see we're starting to explore, and this is something that's already being done somewhere else, I guess. But we're starting to see the success of these type of tools and technologies in actually connecting with communities. So I can see how New Rochelle City Hall, can be in the metaverse, and many services can be provided through there. So we're starting with an antiquated version, something that's actually happening in some cities in the U.S. with a mobile city hall, and using the same approach that we're taking with NRVR, but actually translating it to city hall and services that that allow people to get not having to go to city hall to get it. That's the whole idea. So I can also see how we can move to these 2030 time frame in offering people, and the shift in residents that we're seeing, with the boom in residential development that we're actually seeing. This is, I think, the fastest growing city in New York State right now, just because of the whole development of the downtown that we're having. So I can see how all that could adapt to having that version of City Hall, and of the service that we provide, up there, but also how do we foster new businesses to come to the city? So with Iona University right now, we're exploring some ideas on how to, create a space where businesses can incubate and then maybe move to the downtown. So it's like it's an interesting thing, the way that it's being thought about, because it's like going from the virtual to the physical, but keeping a virtual presence. So how do you complete that? Where do you start it? It's a conversation that we're having right now, and I think it's pretty exciting. On Monday I have a presentation, that we're gonna see what that looks like. But I think exploring those things is something like that we're ingraining kind of in our DNA, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Thank you. Before your last remark, that's at least my perception that, of course, those two worlds coming more and more together, virtual and physical, and especially in cities, I think first, is something that is the separation that we still make maybe in general here in this room. While, again, when I look at my 13-year-old daughter, digital and physical are just blending already so much. There's always this picture that I have when I look at my two daughters and they're on the couch with friends on their phones. I'm always thinking this is poor, this is not what you want. But this is just how it is for them, They're completely, and you also notice, of course, with your platforms and engagement, this is just how it works. They completely intertwine. And, well, that's, I think, something also to think about at another moment in time. Some last remark from you, Justin, and then we'll close.
Yeah, I think in 2030, we'll probably be talking about a technology that doesn't exist today. And I think that's what's exciting. But as it relates to the technology that does exist today and what that means for Walmart, I think as we think about what we've done over the past 5 or 10 years, we've stood up grocery commerce where you're navigating to websites and you're able to, with one click, add all of those grocery items to your cart, easily check out from Walmart, super seamless. We're meeting customers where they are online. And that was an evolution in that space several years ago. As we think about the metaverse, what does virtual commerce look like? How do you bridge virtual with physical in a meaningful way and allow people to actually buy things on these platforms that they are? So again, meeting them where they are online on these platforms like a Roblox or a Fortnite or a Minecraft, as those platforms continue to acquire new audiences, continue to grow their audiences with an older demographic. We've got to be there today so that we're actually building that relationship. And so when we get to that place of virtual commerce, we're already there. We're not playing catch up, but we're actually ready in 2030 to move product in a new platform in a new way. And so I think in 2030, again, I think we'll be talking about different technologies that don't exist today. But for Walmart specifically, I think it's really going to be around commerce in these virtual spaces and that being a new revenue stream for the brand.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. There's no time anymore for our virtual participants in the panel, but I would like to thank Roland and David again, either on your free day or late at night. So thank you again for making the time, and please stay in touch the coming 2 days with our event. Thank you so much, and of course, Justin, for being part of this. Maybe in 2030 we see you working together. You just never know. And thank you all for growing from an audience into a community in the coming 2 days. And I think now we have, what do we have? Do we have a break or do we have another panel session? One more panel session. Wow, we're going to bring it to you. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll try to be